afternoon, all, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for tuning in. If you can, if you're on YouTube, please hit that like, share, subscribe button, hit that notification button. If you're on Rumble, hit that Rumble button, hit the like button. And if you're watching on X, please share this out to any and all who are not trying to be low information. I hope everybody had a fun, safe, a good Memorial Day weekend. Remember, it's a holiday to take take a step back and say thank you to all the servicemen and women that have given us the right to be safe in this country. And yet I wanted to show you that here we go in a place where at least 100 people might have gone to the Jersey Shore. 73 people were arrested, 21 kids during the Memorial Day weekend alone on Jersey Shore. So even if you're from New York and you're trying to have a getaway, it's like the crime goes with them. So I used to frequent the Jersey Shore a lot. I like the Jersey Shore, Seaside Heights. Obviously, let's not conflate the Jersey Shore show with being there, but out here in South Florida, we're not seeing 100 people arrested and 21 kids. That's ridiculous. And look, dozens were nabbed during last year's festivities in the Jersey Shore enclave, where a 15-year-old was stabbed during a brawl on the boardwalk. It was also closed briefly after what authorities called civil unrest, whatever that means, that caused a panicked crowd to sprint down exit ramps and reports of shots being fired on the boardwalk. I can't believe that. I really can't. Hey, shout out to my buddy, the Mean Machine, saying Jersey, huh? Afternoon, big gabagool. Yeah, that's my buddy. He's the man around town in New Jersey, and I don't know what happened there with Jersey Shore with all those arrests, but that just shows you that New Yorkers really, wherever they go, something's going to follow them. I would hope they would clean up their acts, but hey, kids will be kids, I guess, right? It's I'd rather be safe than sorry, but I don't. Who am I now? I guess I'm too old for that whole crowd of trying to tell people, how to be safe. But yeah, Jersey Shore, man, that was crazy. But I hope everyone else had a safe Memorial Day weekend, and of course, remember, it's always a day to remember the servicemen and women. It's not a day to celebrate anything, but to each his own. Also, over the weekend, there was another horrific incident. And it's right here, the Finest Unfiltered, that uncovered this, and particularly John McCarvey. So you see right here, this is the footage of the NYPD cop who was beaten and robbed of his firearm in the Bronx on his way home from work. This is how fast things happen. So that video showed someone who is supposed to be, I guess they're saying off duty, could be on duty, but this portal-to-portal crap that I remember in the NYPD, he's coming home from his detail, right? And as you can see, look, there's two thugs, one with a knife going right up to him. And you can see he's holding a knife to his neck, and they're rummaging through his pockets. They take his firearm. The only thing I can tell you here is there was one thing I remembered in the NYPD. It was to be cognizant of your surroundings. So you have to be aware of your surroundings. Clearly, the officer here was looking at his phone. That would be a life lesson that no matter what you do, you're always on duty. You have to be cognizant of your surroundings. And the fact that these two thugs, and by the way, it's the 45th precinct. And if anyone can remember what was in the 45th precinct, it was a shady, seedy little restaurant that was up there. So they used to frequent. All these NYPD executives were there. I mean, crime was down in that area apparently, because there was never anything that came up anywhere in regards to that seedy, shady little place. But crime apparently is up in this precinct, even though they tell you crime is down everywhere. And you could tell look at what they did to this guy. And then, they kicked him right here. It's brutal. They stomp on him right there as this guy's laying down on the ground at their mercy. And other than John Macari's post, no one was covering this in the media. And now the one of the thugs right there was picked up. Isn't that nice? He was picked up in Virginia, hiding like a little coward. It looks like he got a little blood on his face there. It looks like K9 might have apprehended him, but that was a great job by Virginia. There he is. Oh, we should feel bad for him, I guess. Why is he running to Virginia if he's got nothing to worry about? But the whole incident serves as a couple of things. Number one, always be aware of your surroundings. So I hope this officer is now safe. And it's just a lesson to learn to always be, never put your head down, especially going home. This portal crap, I was a big proponent of not being for this, because you're going home from a detail which you just worked. You're in uniform. You look like you're half in uniform, like halfway. Even if you wear a jacket, your pants stick out. You have a gun belt. It doesn't look good. And your neighbors can now identify who you are. Or just anyone in the neighborhood, which is what these people did. They targeted him. It's very obvious. So then we have the part of how brazen the criminals are. And that just shows you that in New York City, crime is out of control. No matter what you hear from the mayor, the MAGA mayor, and his horrendous police commissioner, which he's had 4 of, telling you, oh, everything is great. No, everything's not great, because that's a harrowing scene that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. It wouldn't have happened prior to Bill de Blasio being the mayor. You know why? Because criminals were terrified of what could happen to them. But between all the laws, legislation changing that basically favor the aggressor of every crime in New York City. So even if this officer were to somewhat try to defend himself, you would have been under scrutiny, and who knows, because you can't defend yourself in New York City. That's how the rules are, the laws. They attack victims and not the aggressor. So with that even being said, the portal thing should be, you can't be doing that. I don't know why you don't want to give a vehicle to a cop from the precinct to go to whatever he's supposed to go, because that's how it usually is, but they want to save money with their cars. And I'm going to get to something about vehicles in 2 seconds. But so to do that, they do this whole portal thing where they give you like an hour and change of overtime because you're using your own vehicle to get to somewhere and to go home. But again, this is what you're putting your employees out to be. They're out to hang dry. They're hanging dry out there because they're going home, and you can recognize them. Who knows if this was done in that neighborhood in the 45th precinct? Who knows if these people were casing them? Now we're going to find out. But these are the things that stuck out in that incident. And of course, John Macari, who was the only one to report on this originally, right? No one wanted to write about this. And also the response by the union was ridiculous. I mean, the union didn't even say anything for a while. This guy was in a hospital. And of course, we see the MAGA mayor showing up like now he's the savior. This guy never cared about anything or anyone. Now it's election time, which right now he should have been getting sentencing. He should have been sentenced for all his crimes. Thank you, Emil Bove and President Trump's DOJ. Great job on that one. And now he's masquerading like he's a mayor who's wanting to get elected. So there's that whole thing. But that's my thoughts on that. Kudos to Virginia. I don't know what agency got this guy in Virginia, but they apprehended this perp. Look at this.
Talk about small town America, and the energy and spirit of that is here in Ridgewood. Hardworking, working class people, and the most important thing you'll find, patriotism. They're patriotic. This parade is a symbol how in many of our smaller communities we continue to hold on to our belief. This is the greatest country on the globe, and it is safest country on the globe because these men and women who serve in our armed forces. Let's pray for them. Let's lift them up. Let's pray for the family members who are lost during this time of war now and during times of previous wars. And God bless America.
Yeah, now, like I said, he's all patriotic. Meanwhile, we all know that he used to have these little events where he would allegedly get booster bags, depending on which nation or country was representing him, representing the parade. So if it was a Turkish parade, he would say New York is now the Istanbul of America. If it was St. Patrick's Day, New York City is now the Dublin of America. You know, and here he is now. We started this summer with historic drops in crime, and it's continuing that way. This is Mayor Eric Adams. This past weekend had the lowest number of shootings in recorded history for Memorial Day weekend in the city. That's years of commitment to ending gun violence bearing fruit, thanks to the NYPD and so many others. Our streets are safer. New York are safer. New Yorkers are safer. Our New York is safer. Did you see that video I just showed you? And Pat Donahue said, and I think Pat has a point. He says, I believe he was, meaning the cop, targeted because he was deemed an easy mark, not because the perps knew he was a cop. That's true, too. But again, stop having your head down on a phone at 4 in the morning, because this is not a safe place anymore in New York City. I say that all the time. So the next thing I wanted, because we are talking about the Bronx, I actually saw something about someone getting awarded, right? We had this whole thing on the show, and that's Martin Matarazzo, who we saw recently. And I want to put this post up that I posted. I said, this is why the NYPD will never get fixed. Just a few days prior, Martin Matarazzo was documented partying with her longtime criminal mob associate friend in the Bronx, who she is documented to have been associating with for years. Instead of investigating her and terminating her, she gets an award, just like Ed Caban used to weekly, and everyone else who was part of the Con Sofrito crew in the NYPD. As crime continues to skyrocket and everyone continues to be self-impressed, social media craved, a legal reckoning needs to come via the courts to the NYPD, because until bad behavior is corrected, nothing will ever change. The powerful grow in stature, while the rank and file are ostracized and terminated for wearing something as minuscule as wearing white socks. Hashtag hypocrites. And as you could see in that post, I put up the picture of Martin Matarazzo, who's the chief of training, by the way. She's the police academy chief, hanging out with a criminal mob associate pal. And then on the bottom of this, you could tell that she got an award. She got an award at some place, which was a trend that we saw when Ed Caban was the police commissioner. I had an award ceremony every weekend, and they were all self-impressed, taking pictures and videos. Here she is with Joe Fox. I guess Joe Fox has no problem with hanging out with mob associates and places that are alleged to have human trafficking reported to the NYPD. All of that doesn't matter. They're all self-impressed. They're all smiling. Look at me. I'm the greatest. Don't mind what I'm doing, and I'm going to judge you and be hypocritical of police officers for wearing white socks and other minuscule things. That's what goes on in New York City Police Department. Until that's fixed, that will as long as this continues, the NYPD is, like I like to say, not on the level. And speaking of the NYPD, then is the illustrious commissioner, the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, and her little reign of terror and tyrant. She's a tyrant, let me tell you that. And I don't know if they're setting her up for some kind of political run. I don't know exactly what it is, but there was this other little tidbit that we found out just yesterday during Memorial Day. And I'm going to put it up here. So here it is. Last week, NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch visited the Fleet Services Division and allegedly questioned why so many RMPs, NYPD vehicles, were not being repaired. She then allegedly instructed them that if vehicles weren't fixed by the next day, staff will be transferred. This is despite being advised by said staff that vehicle repairs take time. As a result of Tisch's threats, the Fleet Services Division is allegedly hiding crashed vehicles around the facility to prevent staff from being unnecessarily transferred. Additionally, officers who are currently modified are said to be getting allegedly reassigned to central booking due to staffing shortages, as at least 3 modified uniform members of service at the Quartermaster Division were reassigned to central booking in the last few days. So now we're going to try to make this make sense. First of all, the unions, where are you? People getting transferred for something like this is ridiculous, and they should be making deals. And yeah, Marlon Bethel chimes in from the Finest Unfiltered. Well, it now makes sense why she's made chief at such a young age. She's talking about Matarazzo. But with this thing with Tish, right? So there's a little bit of, there's a lot going on here because fleet services, vehicles are damaged or destroyed or whatever the case is, and they have to repair them. And you can't just snap your fingers and do this, because even in the fleet services division, when they have a few places you go to drop off vehicles, that doesn't work. I mean, it takes a long time to fix things. Things need repairs. So to run around and start forcing them, if you don't repair this in 24 hours or less, I'm going to transfer you. That is tyrannical. From what I'm seeing, Jessica Tish, in my opinion, does not understand the NYPD culture. She doesn't understand how the NYPD truly functions. She just expects to be like a CEO. Do what I tell you, do it now or else. That's kind of what we're seeing. And it's sad, but that's the truth. And if you're working at Fleet Services Division and you're doing things like trying to hide the cars are wrecked because her or her informants are running around trying to see what you're up to, that's part of the problem. That's why we're seeing the NYPD have all these issues. And, we had Sewell, you had Eddie Caban, you had Tom Donlin, and now you have her. And it's one continuous pattern of corruption flourishes underneath them. We also have that, I don't know if they have a full say in what's going on, because Eric Adams is always, lurid in the background trying to tell people what to do or step in the NYPD. But this is a problem. And I see this as a problem that there's no unions here. The union should step in and say to themselves, here, you can't just transfer cops. You can't be doing this. Why? And you know why they're silent? And they were pretty silent with the incident over the weekend. Well, they got a contract. They love being self-impressed. All these union heads like to hang out with seedy people in shady places. They get awards, and they basically don't care. I mean, they're celebrating the Tier 3 pension, which was Tier 3 now. 20 years you can retire, but you don't have a variable supplement. And you don't have full benefits till your 25th year, or at least 23rd year, even with that Tier 3 being fixed. And they're celebrating this like it's a grand win, and it's not. So this is the kind of things that happen in the police department. But so that was the latest, we'll say, alleged rumor, but it seemed that there's a lot of truth there. You could just check it out yourselves. So I don't know what she's doing or how she's running the police department, but she's running into the ground. But, of course, the Post, the Daily Mail, we'll wait for the next article. Crime is down, even though officers themselves are getting beat up in the streets and having their firearms taken from them. Crime is down. Everything is great. Eric Adams should be reelected because Trump let him off the hook. Great job. Oh, Tish should be – forget about – she's going to be the next governor or whatever you're going to make her. That's what this is all about. Marlon says it best, Marlon Bethel. It's all about controlling the narrative for their perception management. Even to a degree, Trump does it himself. So, again, my heart goes out to the men and women of the police department. But, your unions, you have no voice. And that's why you come to us. Like John McCarry posted what happened over the weekend. Until that happened, nobody was even commenting on it. Daily News, New York Post, they waited till way after, till John put it up there. Oh, we should write something about it, because they don't want to let you know that it's so bad in New York City that even off-duty cops are getting assaulted. That's pretty sad. And then one last thing before I have a guest on, there was this guy Modani. This guy Modani, who's running for mayor. Look at this guy. Democrat socialist policy pictures face tough fiscal reality in New York. And I'll tell you what this is. This guy wants to tax all the rich. Wants to tax rich people. That's always been their little scheme, right? But Kathy Hochul's the governor, and unless she raises the taxes on the rich, that's never going to happen. So The governor, a moderate Democrat, has expressed steadfast opposition to hiking taxes on high-income earners. She will be facing re-election next year, too, just as Mamdani would need her blessing to begin accomplishing his goals during his first year in office. Adverse conditions that stand to imperil nearly half the state assembly members' $10 billion bonanza. This is all a utopia that's not going to happen. If New York City continues to be low information, you're going to have a guy like this in office. Although reading the polls and the numbers, I don't see this guy winning at all. Right here, and this is sad right here. A new poll of Jewish voters in the New York City mayoral race. So Cuomo obviously 31%. Mamdani's at 20%. How is that? Brad Landis at 18%. Adrian is at 8%. Scott Stringer at 5%, and then there's more. But how is it that Mamdani, who is not only a socialist, he's no fan of Israel. I mean, you can look this up. You can see where he's been. Why is this guy the second most liked candidate for Jewish voters in New York City? You got a problem with that. Hey, a political review of his proposal found Mamdani has likely underestimated the cost of his housing construction and school rehab plans by tens of billions of dollars, making it that much harder for the charismatic 33-year-old politician to breathe life into them. He's going to remain in this race, but he's not going to win, and he's not going to be a Democrat candidate. Clearly, it's going to be Andrew Cuomo, and it's going to be a 5-horse race. You have the MAGA donors actually behind Cuomo and or Eric Adams, and they're leaving Curtis Lewa in the dust, who's the Republican candidate. And he's actually doing a great job on the ground, but you'll never hear of it because nobody's helping him in the Republican Party. And I'm talking about the people with money. When I say people with money, you need money to win these races. Cuomo's got 8, 9, 10 million. Mamdani has the same. Eric Adams has a couple million. Where is Curtis Lewa's millions as a Republican? Oh, that's right. They're giving it to those two guys. So that's how I see this race. And unless New York City wakes up, it's just stuck in a low information bubble. It's quite the shame. So with that being said, now we're going to lead to something. Now we're going to be talking about something that happened not too long ago. And I remember, I mean, I wasn't born yet, but I remember hearing about this later on. And in the 70s, this entire event kind of like held New York in a stranglehold. And that's the Son of Sam. And the Son of Sam was Dave Berkowitz, who is a serial killer that went around. And I mean, this guy was a wacko. Eventually got caught, and he's in jail right now, serving a life sentence. Which, by the way, there's parole. If they change his whole parole hearing and who they put on the parole boards, they're going to let everyone out, not just cop killers. This guy too. You never know, because in New York, if you elect people a certain way, the way they're going, you're going to have crazy scenarios like that and ideas that are thrown around. So, David Berkowitz was a killer who ran around and killed quite a few people. And there was this narrative with him. Here, look, and here's the article about our guest today. This is Manny Grossman, YouTuber who helped ID first Son of Sam victim, pushing very interested cops to find more bodies. And Manny did a lot of work, got a lot of evidence to disprove this Maury Terry guy who, if anyone remembers, there was a documentary on Netflix about this, which kind of perked everyone's interest in this again. And it was a completely bizarre, crazy narrative in that, which talking about occultists and Satanists and all this stuff. None of that is true, folks. And it was Manny Grossman who's been doing so much research and had a lot of people put this whole thing together. So without any further ado, I'd like to have the foregone expert in the Son of Sam crimes on, Manny Grossman.
Well, thank you very much, Sal, for that amazing intro. I truly appreciate it, and I'm honored, and I have nothing but the highest thanks to you and, of course, your colleagues at the Finest Cast for having me on, well, the best police podcast in the world. So it feels great to be getting some law enforcement attention as a civilian especially. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, so I'm not going to lie to you, Manny. I've been a fan of your work for a long time, as you know. I've watched a lot of your stuff.
Thank
you. Do a lot of first walk and talks, then you showed evidence. Then I saw you work with a couple of detectives. You were putting this whole thing together, and I always like these walk and talks that you've had because you go back to the scene of the crime. You show the neighborhood where Son of Sam was living. It's actually almost exactly the same as it was back in the 70s.
It really is.
You even go back to the apartment to show that when it was a fire, the door still has the damage from that fire.
The door hasn't changed on Berkowitz's downstairs apartment, and even more, one of the houses in the neighborhood he lived in, 18 Wicker Street, still has a rifle shot in the aluminum siding from when he shot their dog.
Yep. And I see that, and I'm saying you put in so much work and did all this stuff, and really, I don't even know where to begin because I just remember this Maury Terry angle of this story.
Right. Well, before we get into what you see, what you and your audience sees here, yeah, very briefly, I started my Son of Sam obsession really in 1993 when I was in college. And I originally came to it as one of these Maury Terry fans. I was obsessed with the notion, because I grew up right near Untermeyer Park. I was obsessed with this notion that there was this whole story that we never heard of, and the NYPD was covering up their malfeasance and all this kind of stuff. And I was absolutely obsessed. And in 1993, I actually was hanging out at a friend's house in Yonkers. His father was not yet the fire chief, but he eventually became the fire chief, a man named Tom Lorio, who told me straight up that he was in Berkowitz's apartment to respond to the fire that you had mentioned earlier in his downstairs neighbor's apartment that Berkowitz set. And the apartment was clean as a whistle. This was just a few days before the arrest. So, and then he said, and did you know that Berkowitz also hung out with cultists at Untermeyer Park? Remember, this urban myth, Sal, went around like crazy, and a lot of people who should have known better believed in manipulating Maury Terry's complete bullshit story. So anyway, life intervened. Many years go by, and just real briefly, in 2020, I had been canceled. I had a thriving landscaping and gardening career here in New York, basically hiding my conservative views from the uber leftist communist horticulture scene in New York. But once lockdown hit, I was outed. And once I was outed, I was canceled viciously. People who loved me before and who thought I was the greatest gift to landscaping all of a sudden started calling me Hitler. So I was losing job after job. I was teaching at New York Botanical Garden for 10 years. They fired me because I mentioned Bill Gates in class one day. And so I had a lot of time on my hands in 2020, 20 and 21. So I figured, let me just go out there and pursue this interest of mine. And one thing, as you mentioned, and I'll end here, one thing led to another, and we ended up becoming part of the inner circle of, in the beginning of this whole Maury Terry group of people. And that led me to meet Josh Zeman, who did that original documentary in Netflix. He showed me all of Maury Terry's files. And once I had all of Maury Terry's files, including all of the DD5s, the detective reports from every shooting, I realized that there was a real problem with Maury Terry's story. And I immediately shifted to the original lone gunman theory, but with a twist, because our research over the past few years has also sort of debunked the official story as well, the story of the talking dog, that this dog was speaking to him, and that's why he was going out and shooting people. So I like to think of my work as a third way, as the realistic story of Berkowitz, and the picture that has emerged that this guy was a menace from day one. As a child, he was committing antisocial acts, and he was violent and vicious ever since he could move. And it led us to think that he had more victims. And as you see here, we eventually came to recognize that this lady here that you see in blonde, Wendy Savino, was in fact his first victim, and she was completely unknown. And so it was our philosophical framework provided by the great retired first grade detective Mike Lorenzo up in Yonkers, who gave us the thought that maybe this guy had some other victims, and then we found Wendy through that. But what I would like to do real quick, because I think your audience will enjoy this, there's a video that I have uploaded of 2 clips of Mike Lorenzo. And so he sort of, this was like a year before Wendy was even on our radar. And we did a video about, Zodiac and the similarities to Son of Sam. And this right here is where we started to think that maybe Berkowitz had other victims. So if you just want to let this play, and then there's 2 clips, I'll tell you when to pause it.
Yeah, sure.
I told you this, and every cop who's watching this will laugh when I say this because they'll know it. I heard this from an old cop too. It's not something I invented, okay? If I catch you for one thing, the chances that was your first crime that you ever committed, and you were so unlucky that I happened to catch you, are astronomical. Okay, if you're a burglar, if you're a thief or whatever, like him, Berkowitz was a menace and never got caught for shit.
It's going back to when he was a child.
Going back to when he was a child. And most crimes do go unsolved, unfortunately. So I always say, yeah, I caught you for this one, but I know you did 30.
So, Sal, if you just want to pause that there, and I would like actually your thoughts on that as a law enforcement professional before we get into the next clip.
Yeah, I actually saw a lot of his work. I don't know. There's people in the chat saying things about
those are my critics, and I have the craziest haters on planet Earth. So just ignore whatever they're saying.
Yeah, it's like, listen, I was a cop, and I could hear things. You know, they could say crazy things about myself or John or Eric. You know, I don't know what all that's about, but I'm just going on what he's saying. And I remember seeing that actual episode on the board. He starts to draw, and this is kind of you're seeing an inside look of what goes on with in the police department because he's a detective. So he's putting on the board theories and he's comparing notes, and this is how you start to draw a theory of what may or may not have occurred, and they're trying to prove this depending on the evidence he had. So I actually liked his the way he presented things, he showed you how he was presenting it step by step by step, because I think later on he starts to put the evidence up on the board too, like little notes. I remember seeing that also. Well,
this is a separate, the video that we're showing was actually way before we ever met Wendy. So this was, so you are I think you're referring to the Wendy show, which was excellent as well. I mean, Mike Lorenzo is my rabbi. That dude, I have so much respect for him. And of course, I also want to shout out Detective Robert Klein from NYPD, but we'll get to him in a few minutes. So this next clip is what led us to really think outside the box on Son of Sam, because we realized that there may be something more that this guy was letting us know about. So play this. It's about 1.5 minutes long, and this was the moment when we realized that something's up.
There's a couple of things which I want to broach that really stood out to me, because the way he thinks and the way I read what he writes, people always mess up. That's how you, not even intentionally, like they call a Freudian slip, or just subconsciously they put something in without thinking, oh God, that's my tell. It's like poker. Everybody has a little tell. Everybody has a thing where you could tell. It might mean nothing, but to me, it means something. I'm convinced of it. When he wrote in that letter to Abrahamson, or however Eric wants to say it, okay, Abrahamson, but he says, okay, now I already told you about the Loria shooting, right? To kind of make it concise. My second attempt with the 44. Why would you say with the 44?
Now, just before you can.
Well, there's still another minute to go on that.
Yeah, I wanted to see what he was saying. Talking about the
13th, 1979 letter to Abrahamson, where he is talking about the Denaro shooting. And it says here, just specifically, let me read it. The second job, using police terminology, right, was the Denaro Keenan one. Both of them were sitting in a red Volkswagen and making out. This was my second murder attempt with my 44. Now, that stood out to you. Why?
My 44. Again, he compartmentalizes, not with. No, okay. Yeah, I'm going to run down the shootings. This was my second attempt with my 44. Well, he was known as the 44 killer.
Why even
He
bring
was
it up?
caught with the 44. Why introduce that phrase? Because in his mind, he has categories. This is what I did with this gun. This is the ones they got me for. Going back to, I caught you for 1 or I caught you for 10, it means you did 100.
So so that was the beginning of us thinking outside the box on Son of Sam. We were no longer satisfied with this July 77 to August 11th 76 to 77, and we started to search for things that maybe would point to other victims. So if you would just please put up slide number 14, that would be, oh, I'm sorry, slide number 8. I apologize. Slide number 8, because this is the first thing that I came across, the first picture that I came across that made me do a double take. So I'm looking in the files for the Donna Lauria shooting. That was the first shooting, which took place on July 29th, 1976. And so I come across this sketch within her set of DD5s. There's about 150 documents in her file folder. And I look at this and I go, wow, this is a sketch of Berkowitz I've never seen. This is the spitting image of Berkowitz. And then I look at the date on it and it says 5/5/76. So I'm thinking to myself, 5/5/76, that's 2.5 months before the shooting of Donna Lauria. What is this? So I kind of file it away in my mental filing cabinet, and then a few months later, I remember Mike Lorenzo's whiteboard about the other victims, and then he gets into the picture, and then he finds one of the most important documents we ever found. Would you go to, please put up slide number 9?
Yeah, that sketch was prior to the first shooting, though.
The first official shooting.
Right, yeah.
And it's him. I mean, it's absolutely him. And we'll get into the story later. So Lorenzo finds this within the files of Donna Lauria's shooting, the first official victim. So now this was a detective who thought that the case that he was inserting into her files was similar enough to Donna's that he wanted to put this into her files. And just so you know, the sketch that we just saw is associated with this DD5. So the reporting officer contacted the 9th Homicide Zone. The assault on 4/9/76, that'll say Wendy Savino under the redaction, in the parking lot of Nina's restaurant at 3372 Boston Road. The MO of this assault was somewhat similar to the homicide under investigation. And then we go down. A sketch was made of the perp in that case that described as male, white, 35'9", 160, curly black hair, sketch number 183. Now, the first thing that the audience should know is that the MO was exact. It wasn't similar. It was exact. It was a stranger shooting taking place late at night to a female in a car. And one of the things that we realized, if you would go to the next slide, is number 10.
It was also random, like just some random.
It was random. There was no... I have every police file associated with this case that NYPD showed me. They looked into her husband extensively, nothing. The case died. Right now, my critics are trying to pin the shooting on her husband. They're saying he was a mobster, and they're making up all sorts of flights of fancy out of thin air. But there's no evidence to back that up. But look at what she says and describes the gunman. It says here, the police said that Mrs. Savino was able to supply a description of her assailant who had walked up to the car, smiled at her, and fired 5 shots at her near point blank range. Now, look at what David Berkowitz wrote at the bottom here. He says, people think I look honest, but I'm not. I have an innocent face, but I'm not at all innocent. I must admit that I do love my face. I can fool anybody with it. It's above suspicion, so to speak. My face, my lips, and my blue eyes are like weapons, which I sometimes use to my own advantage. I don't consider my facial features handsome. To me, they're just innocent looking. I was very aware of its usefulness during my crime spree. And if you would go to 11 and 12, again, the smile of David Berkowitz was his biggest and most known characteristic in the wake of his arrest, if you would go to number 11, again, it talks about at the bottom of that blurb, it was a smile that few people remembered. And then if you would go to, right, an overweight working man with a perpetually bemused smile. If you go to the next slide, number 12, it talks about a prison guard who the main thing that he noticed was this smile of David Berkowitz. So here you have a woman getting shot. Okay, now we haven't even met Wendy yet. Okay, we're just going, this is all circumstantial, but you have a woman here, right, getting shot in a parking lot of Nina's restaurant, which is a mile away from where Berkowitz lived in the Bronx. He was on Barnes Avenue. He went to school at Chris Columbus High School, which is half a mile away. It's less than 2 miles from the Donna Lauria shooting. It's 3 months before the Lauria shooting. And we have a smiling perpetrator that with the same exact MO that looks exactly like David Berkowitz. Are you kidding me? This was him. We were convinced of it. So Lorenzo finds Wendy's number and I cold call her. And I leave her a message. This was May of last year, April of last year. And I tell her my theory that she was shot by David Berkowitz. I didn't even know if this woman was alive, Sal. I was speaking into a voicemail. You're
taking a guess. Just hopefully she's alive.
I'm not even know if it's the same Wendy Savino. So
yeah.
I leave a message. 3 days later, she calls me back and I say to her, Wendy, do you have any thoughts on my theory? She goes, I was shot by David Berkowitz, Manny, and I've been saying it since the day he was arrested, and nobody has believed me. I reported it to the Bronx district attorney, and they didn't do anything. So that started this whole journey where we, through our philosophical framework of other victims, and then knowing the case enough that we knew about this guy's MO, his characteristics, he would also do this thing where he would go crazy about noise and then go shoot people. Well, she shot on April 8th. On April 9th of 76. On April 8th, he leaves his home under extreme duress, moves out because of dog barking. And then she gets shot the next day. So all of these circumstantial things came together. And then when she adds on to it that she is absolutely positive. So now we have a living witness with a positive identification. And so the MO is quite different. Berkowitz never shot into the driver's side. This is ridiculous. The people are also saying that because he shot with a .32 that it wasn't Berkowitz. Do you, as a professional, Sal, do you have any thoughts on these things?
Well, I'll say
people are saying.
I'm going to say this. I've had it in a precinct where one guy would commit 2 different crimes 2 different ways. The MO kind of fits. It's kind of circumstantial, but again, it was the same guy that committed the 2 crimes.
Right.
I mean, Andy DiMaggio says here, victim IDs aren't always reliable. Evidence for Berkowitz shooting Savino is highly circumstantial, moderately strong circumstantial, I admit, but circumstantial nonetheless. And the reason being is because back in this time frame, which is in the 70s, they didn't have DNA. They weren't collecting. I mean, some of the stuff when they collected evidence, they kind of did what they did on OJ. They'd be just grabbing things and touching things. So that part has to be. You have to remember that when we say what the evidence. But her remembering this guy, because I remember what you were saying is in the beginning. When she was shot, she mentioned this person, Berkowitz. She mentioned someone who looked like him. And then later on, when they found that he was the son of Sam, she went back and said that was him.
Yeah.
That's the difference in the story. When we look back from now until back then, she's never recanted that. She's always stuck to that. And
100%.
That's the key part. So even if it's circumstantial, that would be where you lean in on, because remember, in absence of physical evidence or DNA, things like that, you go with witnesses, and who better than the actual victim?
Well, let's take a look at her. Go to, if you wouldn't mind going to slide 15. Let's take a look at her sketch compared with the Lauria sketch, which was just 2.5 months later. And I think your audience of law enforcement professionals is going to find this interesting. The first thing you want to see is that the descriptions are basically exactly the same. 5'9", 160 pounds. On the left is Savino. On the right is Loria. The Loria description is male, white, 5'9", 160 pounds, late 20s, curly, dark hair. So it's essentially the same exact description. Okay. And now one thing I noticed about the sketch on the right is it's 3 months later. Notice that the hair is almost exactly 3 months longer. You know what I'm saying? So the hair is longer. So even that kind of fits. But listen, as Detective Klein, who I want to give a particular shout out on his own, said, if the sketch looked like, just pick some random dude, Popeye, right? Or if the sketch looked like Juan Soto from the Mets, we wouldn't be sitting here. But it's an exact spitting image of Berkowitz. Even he admitted it in his interrogation over this, that the sketch was the spitting image of him. And furthermore, even though he denied this shooting, and remember, he's denied shooting every victim at some point in his life. He said that if he was on a jury, he would convict himself for this crime. So he's admitting it to it obliquely. He can't come out and say that he did it because right now everything is conflicted. He has this Christian grift that he's going on, but he still doesn't want to be seen as it's really convoluted. But Joe, he wasn't over 200 pounds when he was arrested. His arrest in New York Police Department put him at 185 pounds. So that's just a myth.
I want to Pap Donahue chimes in. He's got something good. The pressure to find the shooter and close the case was insane. The illegal search of the car the night Berkowitz was grabbed was shit canned.
Absolutely. Patrick, you're 100% right. And thank God he pled guilty because we didn't have to deal with that whole issue. But I'm just getting a little ahead of myself. I want to just give a particular shout out to Detective Robert Klein, now retired, first grade detective of NYPD. If you wouldn't mind putting up image number 5. So once I meet Wendy and we do this amazing 1.5 hour long video of hers, which you guys can see on my channel, the Grossman Files, with Mike Lorenzo, essentially just taking her witness statement. Then I found Detective Klein and I found this article, and I realized this was the guy who was gonna, if anybody was gonna help me out, it was gonna be this guy. He was a passionate investigator. He really cared about cold cases. And I emailed him on LinkedIn, and within 5 minutes, he had responded, and he was very interested in the story. And Mike Lorenzo and I went down to the 47th Precinct, Fort Apache, the detective cold case. I think it's Bronx homicide cold case. And we spent hours there looking at all of the Savino files, making sure there wasn't anything that, could point to her husband or to another perpetrator. And at the end, we all agreed, now, my opinion means nothing, but the first grade detectives of NYPD, the detective division of Bronx homicide, the people above them, the Bronx district attorney, and my friend Mike Lorenzo, retired first grade Yonkers police detective, all agreed that this guy, he was guilty of this and they were going to pursue it. So they went up and they interrogated him. He denied it, but he said just enough that they felt comfortable, and they closed it out on what's called exceptional clearance. So if you want to go to number 6, this is from the closing report. Yeah, so we couldn't, because it was attempted murder, the statute of limitations was up, and there was nothing we can do. So they closed it out under exceptional clearance. And this is the case summary. In light of the facts, it is the opinion of the investigators of the Bronx homicide squad that the probable cause has been established with David Berkowitz is responsible for the shooting of Wendy Savino. Conferral was made with ADA Scaccia, Bronx District Attorney, and she's in agreement that if the facts of this case were associated to a present-day case, an arrest would be made. Based on statute of limitations, this case is closed on exceptional clearance. So Anthony DiMaggio, I absolutely 100% concede that this is a circumstantial case that was closed under exceptional clearance. Therefore, it's within the realm of, like, we can debate it, right? Have fun, everybody out there who wants to debate it. But I've sat with Wendy Savino, and I am absolutely convinced that she is remembering this correctly, especially given the MO, the circumstances, the criminology, the timing, the location, the sketch. We are absolutely convinced that she was telling the truth, and so much so that her husband wanted to sue Berkowitz in 1980, but he was advised against it. So they were willing to go into a court of law and testify to this back in 1980. I have all those documents as well. So it's a very interesting case. And of course, what it does is it raises the specter that the Son of Sam case, as we knew it, the official story as we knew it, was in fact wrong. But it wasn't a case of satanistic or druidistic activity in Untermeyer Park. It wasn't a case of accomplices. It was that we didn't think of this guy correctly. What Berkowitz was a domestic stalking sniper who would go out every night searching for victims. And if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and the circumstances were correct, he was going to shoot you. And there are probably 100 people walking around New York today who we would be speaking about as Son of Sam victims had the circumstances that night gone a certain way. And that's the long and short of it. He wasn't clinically insane. He was just a psychotic loser incel who couldn't handle noise, and he took out his frustrations on the world because of that. I'm going off, man.
I know. I see Pat Donahue again says our client is the real deal. So you're going to get, yeah. So I'm going to go see, obviously, if he wrote that and they presented this, they went to the Bronx DA, there's evidence there. So people, when you say circumstantial and stuff, obviously for them to go to that link, that great link, there's something there with this.
Well, I'm sorry, Sal, go ahead.
Said now people, there are theories that he might have not been alone, although that was never proven. There's nothing in an entire Son of Sam case other than this ridiculous theory of
manipulating Mo.
Yeah, but Maury Terry's theory of there's satanic people. And I watched that Netflix documentary, and I was a little intrigued going, this sounds like a wild story. If any of this is true, but it was hard to always even prove that stuff because it sounded crazy. It just happens to be that this guy lives in a vicinity at that time where that kind of stuff was going on. There's these satanic people in the park. Also, he lived in an area where there was a lot of mob activity. That hit this, what he did to Wendy Savino. There was also that night, I believe it was another killing.
Joseph Messina.
That involved a mafia figure. They
originally thought that Messina was the shooter of Savino, but he was ruled out categorically by the next morning because he had a thick handlebar mustache. She reported her shooter as 5'9" and 160 pounds. He was 5'6" and 125 pounds. He was a junkie with a thick handlebar mustache. So they think that Michael Meldish from the Purple Gang shot him. So he was exonerated the next day, and the case went cold with zero. It went nowhere.
The Purple Gang was also another crazy part of this. They were part of the mob. They were the hitmen of that time in the Bronx, and because they were drug dealers, I believe, too. So here's something. The defendant, Joseph Messina, was identified in the indictment against him as a rival leader of the Bonanno group. Mr. Messina, who did not say where he had been hiding or why he was surrendering, turned himself in 2 weeks ago at Federal District Court in Manhattan. This was at that time. So I'm just saying, and not to be to show people at the same time when this was going on, because this happened in the Bronx and Yonkers, and you heard about the Purple Gang. In Brooklyn, you had Roy DeMeo running around, and Roy DeMeo in Canarsie was chopping people up outside the Gemini Lounge. Well, he brought them to the Gemini Lounge to shoot them in the head and then chop them up and bring the bodies to the Fountain Avenue dump. In this time period, there were many people that disappeared. Some people that disappeared you don't even know about, including they weren't even mob figures associated with the mob. They're just random guys. So you got two different parallel things going on at the same time. I'm sure there were satanic worshipers in Brooklyn that were not saying we're part of Roy DeMeo's crew. So again, two things could be right at the same time. It doesn't mean they correlate. So right. This thing with him being a satanic worshiper, and I think they was just they're adding fuel to the fire.
There's no evidence whatsoever. Maury Terry, once you actually get the files and you see what he used to work with, you could see it's so clear how he would manipulate police reports and just lie about things and then turn 5 different police reports into one fake story with like a little kernel of truth. And then he would also change timelines. It was really pathetic, actually, Maury Terry's work. The dude was using comic book characters from Conan and showing them to David Berkowitz, and Berkowitz was aping back to him and saying, yeah, that's Ken from The Process, so yeah, this is Moloch. Meanwhile, it was freaking Gimel Ishbi from Conan number 38, and I'm not kidding about that. I met the guy who Maury Terry and interviewed him, the guy who Maury Terry used to, he calls him Billy the Artist. He said, Billy the Artist was my most crucial eyewitness. He hung out with John Carr and the Satanists at Untermeyer Park. Yeah, well, the truth is Billy the Artist was a drug addict who was just playing Maury for drug money, and he saw a sucker and he gave him comic book art. So it's really a sad situation for people who still believe in Maury Terry's work, because we've not only blown through that, but we've also blown through the paradigm of Son of Sam. Like, to me, he shot Wendy. I don't care what other people think. If you want to think he didn't, that's fine. I met with her, sat down with her. We have a living witness, positive ID. All the criminology fits. The sketch fits. It was him. But again, perfectly willing to concede that it's a debate. And if you want to talk with me about it, let's talk, you know.
I think so. It could be a debate, but also you did see what Klein wrote into the district attorney's office. This is today's Bronx district attorney's office, which, by the way, is led by Darcel Clark, who is a alumni of Conso Frito. So getting anything that's factual out of there would be amazing, because she is, I guess, center left of Alvin Bragg, which is completely left. She's center left. But she's also hanging around mob associates herself. So, and hanging around a place like human trafficking. She did nothing about it either, apparently. Neither did Letitia James. So to have her office even admit to anything is amazing, because I would not want to go to Bronx District Attorney with anything. I don't trust her. I don't think that she's a viable – I don't even know how she's a district attorney still. That really shows – I mean –
when you look at her – Darcel Clark, I mean, not to get into all this is beyond my pay grade, but yeah, she looks like a perp. I mean, it's pathetic. I mean,
she hangs out with them.
The people running New York City right now, yeah.
She was there. She had a victory party there. She's hanging out with that entire crew. Yet she's in charge of the district attorney's office, which on top of her would be Letitia James, who's the state attorney general. She's
mortgage fraud
with her.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm out of here. I've decided I just can't. Just the specter of Cuomo as mayor made me realize New York City is doomed. It committed suicide in March 2020 with the lockdowns, and it's been a dead man walking ever since. So yeah, I'm leaving the city this in about a month. I'm going to my farm in Puerto Rico and never looking back.
I had to grab it before you left for good.
Yeah. So Anthony says, tell Sal who answered. So Sal, this guy's father, whose name is Sal DiMaggio. Mm-hmm. Anthony, I've never met him, but I know he's an ex-Yonkers cop.
He's son, by the way, with that name, DiMaggio is one of.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. His father is the one that answered the phone from NYPD when they called up to Yonkers. Yeah. People say a weak car answered the phone. It wasn't a weak car. It was Sal DiMaggio.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There we go. There's my new homeland.
That's a good place. He also said too, Anthony DiMaggio said, all in the Son of Sam research community know I sit the silly squabbling out. So I don't say this just to be combative, but I can assure you they would not have closed the Savino case out if it wasn't so old and unlikely to be solved definitively. I think he's got a point with you're not factoring in who's in charge of that office also, as I just mentioned, Darcel Clark, who, unless something, makes her look good and she could fundraise or whatever it is off of that, she doesn't want to make it a big issue either. Patrick Donahue said, I investigated countless cases, criminal acts, believing someone committed a crime and proving it are two different things. It's also true. By the way, Pat is a distinguished detective in his own right. So you should he worked up in the Bronx. So he's a good guy to bounce evidence off of, and how he dealt with this case, because he knows that.
Well, I think for the edification of your law enforcement audience who would be interested in reading part of the case closing report, this has never been seen, but this was if you put up slide 13, we can just read through one section of this, because this tells you exactly the mindset of the detective division and the Bronx DA as to why they closed this case, why they thought that, despite it being circumstantial, they believed the positive ID from the witness.
Yep.
So, number 5, in the Son of Sam pattern, all victims except Donna DeMasi, Joanne Lamino, and Virginia Voskorician were sitting in cars, which they were shot. Savino was shot repeatedly with a .32 caliber semi-automatic at close range while she sat in her car, but in the remainder of pattern cases, a .44 caliber was used. Berkowitz did not purchase the .44 caliber until June 1276. It is reasonable to conclude that the .32 caliber proved less than effective, hence the upgrade to the larger .44. Savino described the person that shot her as smiling as he approached the car, which made her feel as if he was not a threat and was about to ask for directions. Other victims and witnesses described Berkowitz's smile as he walked towards them. Berkowitz himself stated that he used his face as a weapon to disarm people before acting violently. The geography of the pattern and Berkowitz's daily travels should also be noted in regard to the Savino case. Berkowitz had previously lived at 2161 Barnes Avenue, which is less than a mile from the location of the Savino shooting and in close proximity to the December 75 Co-op City stabbings and the Loria homicide. At the time of the Savino case, he had been living in an apartment on Coligny Avenue in New Rochelle until April 8th, 1976, which is the day before the Savino was shot. According to his landlord, Mrs. Nan Casara, Berkowitz was acting irrationally in regard to her barking dog and had abruptly moved out, citing the dogs. This negative emotional response to barking dogs is evident in at least 4 shootings attributed to David Berkowitz. This includes dated and documented writings of Berkowitz that discuss the effects of barking dogs, which are often written the same day of or a day before a shooting. Additionally, Berkowitz is on record as telling investigators in Brooklyn that he was involved in a shooting of an older woman who crawled away and survived. He stated the shooting occurred in Yonkers, but officials could not determine a date, victim, or location. So that's true. In his confession, they asked him, "Did you shoot any more people?" He goes, "Yeah, I shot an old woman. She crawled away and she survived." Well, guess what? When Wendy was shot, she got out of her car and crawled away back into the restaurant. So I believe he was obliquely talking about her and keeping things behind for his own pleasure. I mean, would that be the first time a serial killer did that?
No, of course not. These are things the serial killers. That's another thing too, is the MOs or the behaviors of serial killers. It matches the way he is mentally. You can kind of tell. You look at other serial killers; they're usually the same way. I mean, not to pick on Roy DeMeo, but mentioning him, that's a kid. The guy who was picked on as a kid. He was bullied. Then he started to work out and whatever, and then he became he's a butcher. Actually, he was a butcher. From there, he got involved with these people doing rackets, mob associate, and then we all know what happened from that. And he would run around and do crazy stuff. I mean, he would punch, knock people out. You know, for his first killer, the first kill of his was documented was I believe it was in a diner, outside a diner in the early 70s. I don't even think it was mob related. He just did it. So
right.
I'm just saying that, not to correlate the two, but the patterns of serial killer, everyone's different, but there's always a moment that they either snap or there's behavior like studies on someone you could do. Is that, what was he doing as a child? And they all have the same pattern. They were picked on. This guy, wasn't he an auxiliary officer? This guy,
he was
weapons. I don't know if you know this, but back in those days, the auxiliary, they used to have guns or weapons in the precincts. So I don't know if he has access to these things. If he could go in a room and just grab them. Remember, this isn't the precinct that we know today. Like today, you can't do that. There's no firearms and body armor in the precinct that you could just snatch up. But back in the 70s, it might have been completely different. And to see an unhinged guy like this not only become an auxiliary officer, so he knows the layout of the land, he knows people, he went on to be in the military as well. That would completely, his mind snapped right there. He learned enough to think that he could get away with these kind of things.
Absolutely.
That's what he is. And these are things that people overlook. The whys, how, if you look, how does a guy like this, he was auxiliary officer, goes in the military, come back, and he's doing these crazy things. And I don't know if he could pull up. Is that 3372 Boston Road? Is that where that restaurant was?
Yeah, Nina's restaurant.
We could pull up what it looks like today, because I saw that you actually went there and you were showing the gate and how this all occurred. Because I think you were saying how he stepped away once he committed this crime. He just
all I have is Wendy's testimony. She said that he shot 3 times and then kind of walked to the back of the car and then came back and shot 2 more times.
Yeah, I want to show the layout of what this looks like.
It's right across the street from there. Yeah, there. Keep on going. No, keep on going to the right.
To the right. Okay.
There. Keep on going. There we go. That's the corner where it took place. If you go back a little towards Bouck Avenue, there we go. Yeah, that's the corner. But it took place in the back parking lot.
Ah, okay. So it was in the back parking lot of this place.
Yeah, you have to go down Bouck, and then it's like you can see if you go down there. Correct. That parking lot right there.
This is the part. Now there's a gate there. That gate wasn't there back in that time.
It might have been, but it was definitely open for people to park. So she was parked somewhere in the it's kind of unclear. I think she was somewhere in the back, and Berkowitz was hiding behind a dumpster and came out and did this. And that wouldn't be the first time. In the Placido shootings, the report was that he was hiding behind a picket fence. So again, if you know this case and you know his particular criminological MO, Savino slots in perfectly. And in fact, I often say that with this case, you could hear the pieces fitting together. And even though I am a civilian, am very honored to be one of the few civilians that ever worked with NYPD like this on a case. And they were all very impressed with the work that we did, and they were fully supportive. And so I say, hey, if the professionals are endorsing me, that's fine. If people out there want to say that Wendy's lying or that her husband shot her, hey, that's cool with me. I can't force anybody to believe what they're going to believe. The people who don't believe Wendy, for the most part, are haters of mine personally. And I guarantee you, Sal, if they had found Wendy, they'd be crowing all over about it. But I've been relatively subdued about it, and but I'm very happy to get this out to the law enforcement community, because I want the professionals to weigh in on this, not people who don't know the case. I want professionals to look at this and give me their opinion as well.
Yeah, and I got Marlon in the chat. Marlon Bethel here said, your infighting is silly. Manny is doing those of us who have no knowledge of the Son of Sam case, i.e. not in the Son of Sam investigation community, a servant. Let him share what he's got on this. And that's what I'm doing here, because I look, I'm not an expert on this stuff. And I'm saying to I wanted this on because this was such a moment in time that captivated New York City with terrified. People don't remember. Women weren't even going out. They were afraid to come out of the house at night. This was a moment, and I don't know, kind of history repeats itself. I think people are afraid to go out right now in New York City. But this was a moment in time, and you're finding out that what you thought you knew, there was even more to it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The papers actually put people in danger. Even with all their fear mongering, the danger was worse. They said that you had to worry if you had long brown hair or if you were a young girl. But if you actually look at his victimology, blonde, brunette, long hair, short hair, male, female, walking on a street, sitting on a stoop, sitting in a car. There was no one particular. It was all victims of opportunity. And so everybody was at risk. And the papers, in a way, they kind of downplayed the actual threat that was going on, which I think is another good thing to learn. It's instructive. But mainly what I want to get out of this whole thing is just a new way to look at this historical case. I mean, obviously, we're just all kind of having fun here. None of this really means anything in the grand scheme of life. It's certainly not a modern case that we have to particularly worry about. But it's one of these cases that captured the imagination of the entire planet. And now in 2025, we have learned so much more about it, which makes it even more terrifying and, in my opinion, much more interesting, because now we have the specter of other victims, which we have never had before. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but I believe he was also the infamous Bronx sniper of 1970. And we're looking into that case right now. That's another very interesting set of sniper cases that took place in Morrisania, just a few short blocks from where Berkowitz happened to be working that summer for his father. And 6 young people were shot. One of them was murdered from a mobile sniper. And to me, it screams, and to Lorenzo, it screams Berkowitz. So that's the one we're working on now. Unfortunately, we don't have any living witnesses like we did in Wendy. But, you know, it's fun. And basically, I'm gone in a month, and I'm kind of going to retire from this from this whole thing.
Well, it's a good listen. I think you've done a service even finding stuff out like this, like what you did. Nobody, I mean, just the backstory on Wendy Savino. I believe her husband was the head of the Bronx Republican Party. Am I correct?
Savino was the head of the Bronx Republican Party. Right. They went to the DA with this, and Mario Marola, prominent Democrat, and they were both ex-NYPD.
Yeah.
So I can't say I guarantee, but I guarantee there was history between these two, because I know for a fact, and I can't get into the specifics, but I know for a fact that the DA took another case where people were accusing Berkowitz of being the killer of their son. A very interesting case, which I have not made public, but I have all the files for it. The Bronx DA actually investigated that case. That never made it into the newspapers. I personally don't think Berkowitz did it, but with Wendy, she came to them and said, she identified his photograph and said, "This is him." And they didn't do anything about it. They did nothing. So I think that one of the interesting aspects of the Savino story is her husband's relationship with Mario Marola, but it's lost to time, Sal. It's too many years.
But I would say there's a political undertone with all of that, the way it's being handled, because this is the wife of a prominent Republican and the DA's being a prominent Democrat. Both of them ex-cops that worked in the same time frame. Might have known each other or whatever the case is there. And you see how this was completely, well, it was some mob associate guy, we think, and it wasn't any interest in the finding who shot this woman. It's an unsolved crime that just lost the time.
It went absolutely nowhere. And what's interesting, though, is in 1994, they actually reopened the case for review. Well, not reopened. It was always open, but reviewed the case. And it's kind of sad that they didn't actually find Wendy and speak to her like we did, because they would have gotten that story back then. But they didn't. They reviewed the case, and her husband was still alive. If he was responsible for this shooting somehow, they could have interviewed him and put him under the 3rd degree. Nothing happened. So, yeah, it was just a case that was lost to time. I mean, think about it. There was this woman upstate who was telling everybody she would meet and was carrying in her pocketbook that sketch for 50 years saying, "Berkowitz shot me," and nobody took her seriously until we came along.
Yeah. It's like trying to scream that there's a attorney general that's covering up human trafficking and other crimes, hanging out with a mob associate. People like, oh, mortgage fraud. Yeah, mortgage fraud is great. I thought human trafficking was worse. But what do we know? What do I know, right? And
they're never going to touch that because they're all guilty of it, my friend.
Yeah, I see that. I think it's but yeah, Pat Donahue, there's a couple of things he said here. He said, first, he said, I'm curious if while being interviewed, was Berkowitz asked, did he pick his shooting locations while considering his routes to flee the scenes?
I don't think that was ever asked of him, but one of the things that Berkowitz was very well versed in was the streets of New York City. He went out every night and he knew every escape route. He had scanners in his car. He knew how to he had crystals with specific frequencies of different NYPD and FDNY scanners. So this dude was set up.
He was an auxiliary guy. He knew that he
knew the deal. He knew the deal. And people say, oh, it was a 32. It wasn't a 44. So the media turned him into the 44 caliber killer. He didn't turn himself into that. He just bought that gun because he became obsessed with Taxi Driver after shooting Wendy. So he became the 44 caliber. But buying a 32 or getting a 32 off the streets of New York City in 1976 in the Bronx was as easy as trading baseball cards. It wasn't a hard thing to do. So I don't see why the arguments people make for this is that he couldn't have gotten a 32. The killer was wearing a leather jacket, but meanwhile, I have his best friend on record in an interview with the Queens DA in 1979 saying, and it's on my site, you guys can listen to this. Hey, I lent Berkowitz a nice, expensive leather jacket, and I never got it back. Now, I'm not saying that was the same leather jacket, but it puts Berkowitz with a nice, expensive 3/4 length leather jacket, like Wendy described. So, people, say what you want. The case is closed under exceptional clearance at NYPD. Nothing will ever change that. If people have issues with me personally, that's a whole other ball of wax. But I'm convinced Wendy was shot. Wendy feels very, very vindicated and very good that at the end of her life, finally people believe her story. And she has gotten so much peace and closure out of this because finally somebody is believing her and her story is getting out. That's what I feel the best about this case. It was very gratifying for me personally. And also it was nice to work in such a capacity with the professionals. I've gained a lot of experience for law enforcement through my work with the Savino case. And I have nothing but the greatest things to say. I know that you have your issues, Sal, and your issues are not my issues. In my capacity with NYPD, I have nothing but the greatest things to say about everybody who I met along the way in this case. And that's basically it.
I'll say this, that issues the NYPD. The people you were dealing with are rank and file. Klein is a rank and file guy. He's not, rubbing elbows with mob associates like these other people that are in charge would be doing. He's doing a job, but he can only do it to a certain degree because then, the police commissioner, all these other people get involved. What you're seeing is what the men and women rank and file, that's what they do. The people that take credit for this will be John Schell. Oh, look at me, or our favorite, the deputy mayor of public safety, Kaz Daughtry, who is a self-impressed promotion 24/7. That's all the guy does. Look at me, look at this, look at that. That's different than Detective Klein, who is a career NYPD guy, is a career cop who doesn't care about being in the spotlight or hanging out with mob associates or being on social media. That's the difference.
Well, to your point, at Detective Klein's retirement party, which I was honored to attend as a friend of his, he said something that was very profound and something that I didn't expect to hear. He said that his advice to all up-and-coming NYPD officers and detectives, he said, first and foremost, you have to make yourself accountable to the victims and their families. And I thought that was filled with such humanity and such a great way of looking at this that it just made my respect for him go up even tenfold. So, and that's really what he showed in this case. I mean, this case was 50 years old. He didn't have to touch it. There was no reason for him to touch it, but he felt that this case, that there was something here. He was very impressed with the work that Lorenzo and I did, and he was in a position to do something about it, and he did something about it. And for that, we're eternally grateful.
He's also a first grader who earned that first grade rank, unlike others who skipped 7 ranks, even though he should have been terminated twice and became the deputy mayor of public safety. He actually skipped 8 ranks. I'm sorry. We keep saying 7. So there's a guy who is a real detective, and then you have a guy who's now running around as Bob the Builder who thinks he's one. Hey,
I just want to say one thing that I haven't said in this whole process is that one of the things that came out of this was that I think that police departments, and I know that this is probably an impossible task, but just speaking as a civilian, I think that police departments should start identifying people in the true crime world on the internet, civilians who are smart and who can help them, and they shouldn't be so averse to working with civilians, because it was the nexus of an NYPD first grade detective working with a civilian which got the Savino case closed. And all the detectives who I met with, they all said, hey, we have, we're sitting here with over 100 years of collective experience between us, and we've never sat down with a civilian like this before. And it made me think that, like, if there's something that can be learned from this, I really think that the police department should open up their vision a little bit to recognizing that there's some of us out there who know what we're doing in terms of criminology, even if we're not professionals. And good things can happen when people work together like this.
You see, this is all the ranks this one guy skipped. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's 2 ranks as detective. So I'm right, 8 ranks.
Who's that? Who's that? Dermot Shay's kid?
No, this is Kaz Daughtry, the deputy mayor, now also known as Bob the Builder, because he's wearing his hat. He's on the bridge. He does it all. He can stop everything. He knows everything. That's the guy who would definitely jump in. I solved the Son of Sam. I wasn't born. That's the kind of guy he is, because he's going to jump in front of camera. I mean, it's really a joke to even think that that's how New York City's run today. But the parallels.
Listen, just the fact that Cuomo's being contended for mayor and he's not in isolation in Colorado Supermax, that's an indictment of everybody who lives in New York City, and we should all be ashamed of ourselves. This guy's who killed this state, who destroyed your grandmother's life, who destroyed my small business, who put you out of work, who got you fired for your vaccine status. He's going to be your new mayor, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. So, NYPD, I think people shouldn't even work for the NYPD anymore. I think they should just go find better pastures elsewhere, because this city doesn't care about you. And anyway, my father used to do public relations for the PBA back in the 80s and 90s. So I grew up knowing a lot of really great cops back then. I just have a lot of respect for.
He also had to deal with his father. He dealt with Mario Cuomo.
Oh yeah, that guy was a bad guy, man.
Mario Cuomo, another one. When you put these people in charge, man, we got to look at the voters. I mean, you look full of low information. They stick to the low information talking points. They already forgot that Eric Adams is a criminal. Right now, he should have been getting sentenced, but he got saved by Trump in some kind of backdoor, backstage deal. Something's going on there. But don't say that, because, Trump is like the Messiah to some people. You can't disagree. You can't point out when something's wrong. That makes you an anti-Trumper or a communist or whatever they want to call you, just because you're pointing out a fact.
Listen, I don't want to get into it because that's not the scope of our conversation, but I'm very disappointed in Trump. I'm a hardcore conservative. I'm as right as they get, but I fell off the Trump train in 2020. I blame him for the lockdowns. He should have put Fauci in jail. He should have put all the lockdown governors in jail. Abraham Lincoln did it in the Civil War. He put people in jail and violated this act. The lockdowns were a violation of everybody's human and civil rights. It required a very, very strong pushback, and we didn't get it. And Trump was in office. I blame him. Now, having said that, I voted for him in 24. I had to. There was no alternative. But I'm not happy with the way things are going, and I really think that he's dropped the ball on a lot of stuff. And also, the Republicans aren't codifying his stuff into law, which is a huge problem. They're a bunch of feckless bastards, weak-spined bastards who And they're letting the Democrats run a train on them. It's ridiculous. We shouldn't even care what these people think anymore. Like, I'm seeing in the chat right now, all of my haters talking. You think I care what they have to say? I don't care what you guys have to say.
Hell, crazy.
Every night on Fox News, the Democrats did this, the libs did. Ignore them. Forget about them. Anyway.
The star tonight, though, is Pat Donahue is always on the money with stuff. I'm waiting for the Kaz press conference where he credits his drone program for help.
So there's a comment from
who assaulted and robbed the off-duty MOS in the Bronx. He's probably he's going to do his drone.
So Marlon Marlon wrote, "Are there any other old cases I'm looking at?" Yeah, if you look on my site, we're doing a deeper look into the Bronx sniper cases in 1970. It was when Berkowitz was 17. It took place in the neighborhood he worked in, and the MO was very similar. I mean, this guy, whoever the sniper was, he shot a 16-year-old girl, and then when she was lying on the floor dying, he pumped 2 more bullets into her. So that shows a level of anger and viciousness that Berkowitz had, and we're convinced that it was him as well. But it's going to be a lot harder to to ever get anywhere near the level we got with Wendy. And even Wendy, again, I concede, circumstantial. But let's debate it, guys. I mean, can we show, just before we end, slides 14, 15, 16, and 17, because it's the Savino sketch compared with the other sketches in Son of Sam.
Yeah, I remember seeing this. I remember seeing this sketch. Look at that.
So look at the Savino sketch compared with Berkowitz's mugshot. It's him, guys. I know that my haters want to think that it was Joe Savino having his wife shot for some mob thing, or somebody sending a message to Joe Savino, the international mobster who nobody ever heard of before we came along. It's him. It's Berkowitz. If you want to go to the next sketch.
It does look.
It's him.
It looks a lot like him.
Go to number 16, because this is the sketch, the Savino sketch compared to an actual Son of Sam sketch. This is the Savino sketch compared with the shooter of Virginia Voskerichian, who was shot at 7:30 on a city street from 1 foot away. Again, showing that Berkowitz didn't have a particular MO of like just shooting into cars. It's a spitting image. It's the same person. And then if you go to the next slide, number 17, which is the final slide, this is the shooter in Brooklyn compared with Savino. And I have a whole hour-and-a-half long show I did where I show you all the descriptions and sketches and compare them, because one of the myths of Son of Sam was the sketches didn't look like Berkowitz, and that's a complete myth. All the sketches were almost spitting images of him, and all the descriptions were of him, and they all comport exactly with the Savino sketch. 5'9", 160 to 170, early 30s. And, you know, it's a very similar look we got going on here. So all I have to ask, Sal, and I'll just end with this. If you don't think it's Berkowitz who shot Wendy Savino on April 9th, 1976, please tell me who the identical twin was who used Berkowitz's same criminology, same MO, and the same kill zone in the same time period, and then never did it again, because we never hear from this identical twin. But we do hear from a person named David Berkowitz, who just 3 months later shoots Donna Lauria half a mile away from where Savino was shot. So you do the math, guys, and that's really all I can say. Sal, huge thank yous.
No, listen, I wanted to at least get you on record before you disappear to Puerto Rico. So listen, I want to thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
I wanted to keep this to this. I mean, obviously I can make you talk about Eric Adams and stuff, but
it's all right.
Yeah, I think
I enjoy it. I have a new channel actually where I'm going off on more politics, and it feels good to get this off my chest, because I'm politically homeless. Like, I hate the liberal left and the communist left. I don't want to have anything to do with these people anymore. They've canceled me and blacklisted me from my chosen profession in New York, so I can't even make a living here anymore. And I also am not really down with the hardcore Trump fans, because he can do no wrong in their eyes. So it's like, where are we with this?
Yeah, that's like the sycophant change. I agree. I don't know. I voted for him 3 times. Obviously, I lost my job because of my support of this guy. But then you see what he's doing. You're like, what the hell is going on? He does do good things, but he's surrounded by bad people. Some that he's appointed, and it's like the same things might be happening again. So all these people on this side are doing great things, like RFK and Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, and then you have the Mike Davises of the world, and Pam Bondi. What's going on with the DOJ? So again, it's like nothing's ever going to be perfect, but man, some of the stuff he's got, I'm just scratching my head.
It's embarrassing. Kristi Noem going out there cosplaying with a gun. I mean, I don't want to get too graphic, but I thought the next scene was going to be those two dudes running a train on her. I mean, I thought it was really going to that spot. I mean, this Kristi Noem is an embarrassment. Pam Bondi's an embarrassment. Yo, what happened to Epstein? What's going on there?
You started with this stuff. It's just, but that's the Trump. That's, I don't know. That's there, and who are you going to blame? I don't even know who to blame. It's like people just want answers. We voted for. We didn't want this. We wanted, first of all, we wanted answers. So we wanted, obviously, everything to come out to the light. We're not into this. Okay, well, so Eric Adams is going to be let off the hook because you said it's going to interfere with his campaign. And then you're going to charge Cuomo now so that you can interfere in his campaign, so that Eric Adams, your boy, the most corrupt human being who's in politics today, could be the mayor again. I mean, come on. This is not what people wanted. That's
this is a.
I like the tariff thing. I think he's doing very well, stock market wise, financial, which is his wheelhouse. He's always was going to be good with that. He's trying to negotiate peace with Israel and Gaza and Palestine, and now you got Russia and Ukraine. That stuff is in his wheelhouse. It's these little things that bother us, the voters, saying, I thought we were going to get transparency because it's domestic issues. That's the problem.
We should only be thinking domestically. I mean, I'm a Ron Paul Republican at the end of the day. I mean, honestly, he should have been elected in 2008 and none of this shit would have happened. We wouldn't have had Obama, and because we wouldn't have had Obama, we wouldn't have had Trump, and things would have been a little bit calmer. And again, I'm with Trump philosophically. MAGA. I want to make America great again. I want to see the factories return. I want to see the rise of the American worker. But where are these mythical factories and American workers? All I see around me, especially in New York, are drugged out zombies who are thinking about voting for Cuomo. I mean, there's nothing to be gained here.
What you're seeing is the DC Dranos of the world propagating propaganda and low information talking points to control the narratives and question management for the entire team, because that's all I see. Him and 20 other people like him. Manny,
yes, sir.
To have you on. Where can people find you? I know you have the YouTube channel. People want to check out anything in regards to Son of Sam, all the work you've done. I'm hoping there's a documentary. Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah, well, we filmed one last year, which is supposed to have international release, and so far I have not heard hide nor hair about when it's being released. It was directed by an Academy Award nominated director, and it was a big deal, and it was basically all based around my video series, and and I've yet to see it in public. And again, I'm not waiting around for that either. I'm on to bigger things. My whole life's goal right now is to go grow turmeric and mangoes and coconuts and papayas and sell them at farmers markets. And I'm leaving this all behind me. I couldn't care less about any of it.
So you're on X, though? You're on X or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you can check me out at the Grossman Files on YouTube and on Twitter. I'm like, if you just look my name up, you'll find me. The links that you have in the they need to be updated. The links in the description of this video, but I'm sure that your amazing producer, will be on top of that. And I just have to say thank you again. It means a lot to be on the show of the most premier law enforcement channel in the world. And this is exactly the audience that I wanted to get this story out to, because, again, I'm not telling you to believe me. I'm not telling you that, like, my way or the highway. What I'm saying is we presented with you guys out there with a new case, with a living witness making a positive ID, with all of this very, very circumstantial, highly circumstantial, but yet very close and good evidence that the NYPD used to close this case. And what do you think? I mean, that's basically all we can go with at this point. So huge shout outs to you, John, Eric, all the people on your crew, Jack, and big shout out and thank you to Sal Greco, the great one.
Well, thank you, Manny. It's been an honor to have you on. I know you had a lot in the chats here, and this is the thing. This is a free speech platform. everyone's allowed to speak. And some people in there just jumping all over the things. I don't know what that's about.
The Son of Sam community is the craziest. Detective Klein will be the first to tell you. They sent in freaking IAB complaints against him for this case. I mean, it's insane. My haters are so jealous and angry because we got success and we became the gold standard. That's really what it's all about.
I wonder if IAB was trying to investigate him when it should have been investigating, I don't know, the all cops are woke guy. There's Eddie Caban. Now you have all new guys now, all his underlings. They all partied. I know the head of IAB was partying at Conso Frito. So nothing happened there. But yeah, keep filing those complaints. I guess they look to, like I said, they look to hammer down on the hardworking men and women police department while the executives run around and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But that's what IAB is focused on the little guy, not on the people. That's the point of that. That's crazy.
I agree 100%.
All right. Yeah. So Manny, thanks for coming on. And we'll see if in the future they have the farmer's market for you.
Thanks. You'll always have a free set of fruits and vegetables, Sal, when you come down and visit me.
Yeah, this is great. But if anything, well, I hope to have you back on in the future, but on something unrelated, or if
the documentary comes out, we'll be back.
If you have if this documentary is finished, or if there's new info like the Bronx sniper ends up, you find some you hit pay dirt on something there. I'd love to have you back on and discuss this. But this is a good hour and a half discussion on something I think people should remember. It's a true crime, and I think that it's important that we review anything. I think you found something that was very important. People could throw water on it all they want, but that's the job. I was a cop. People are going to do that to you all the time, but I think it was very important information, and you did crack a case, and yeah, it was closed because of time, but you proved the point that somebody that was a victim could close a chapter in their life. That's the most important part, not the who, what, this one or that one, or we'll like to say the Kaz Dodry philosophy, the look at me, I solved this. It was more of a closing a chapter for Wendy Savino.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, she got the closure she wants, and people have to remember that if you want it, you can criticize me all you want. All I was a conduit for Wendy's story. She's the one saying that Berkowitz shot her. She's the one who insists it. She has, and she always will. So if you want to criticize the story, remember that you're calling this woman a liar. And, I don't know whether you want to do that or not, but that's between there and their gods. But thank you so much, everybody. Big, big respect to my NYPD friends, my YPD friends. And thanks again, Sal. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, man. You have a good time. You have a good day. Yeah, I mean, there you go. I just wanted to have this on. It was important to have Manny, who's been working on this case for quite a while. And he hit pay dirt when he found this victim, Wendy Savino, that nobody seemed to care about or wanted to hear the story. And it ends up that more than likely, even circumstantially, they said it was highly probable that he would have been guilty of this. It's just, time passed and they couldn't nail this down. But it was a chapter that's been closed for the victim, which is the most important thing. I mean, you have victims still. You have somebody that was murdered at Jimmy's Bronx Cafe. I think that's an unsolved murder still in the Bronx. There's just to give you a window into something, and some people that are victims or their families, they have no closure or anything. That's what you're trying to do. It's not about, hey, look at me, I'm Kaz Dodry, I'm solving everyone's problems when I'm not. That's what we're trying to do here. We want to put a highlight on things like that. It's an important part of life, but I don't know. People going crazy in the chat. I think it's insane, some of the stuff. I mean, everyone's allowed to speak. If you don't like it, okay. You don't have to be so vile over things. I mean, geez. And there's Manny on that one last thing. Says, thanks to my critics. I appreciate all of it. Yeah, I say the same thing. But kudos to Manny, and hopefully there'll be a documentary soon if they'll post that. So just before I leave tonight, the Knicks are playing the Pacers. We'll see what happens with that. The Knicks and Pacers, Game 4 in Indiana. Obviously, the Knicks like to be behind about 50 points before they start playing. So they'll probably be behind by 25 before they come back. Obviously, it's 2-1, 2 games to 1 for the Pacers, so the Knicks have to win. You don't want to come back to the Garden down 3-1. If they tie it up, expect Game 5 to be a madhouse in Manhattan. And we'll see how the New York City Police Department handles that, because I'm sure their leadership is so well prepared for things. And also the Mets last night, we won. So we won the last 3 games after we lost 6 out of 8. I have it down here. The Mets are 33-21. We're in second place. The Phillies, unfortunately, have the best record in the majors, 34-19. So we're behind them. The Yankees and Detroit Tigers are 35-20. They're the second best team. And the Marlins, who I like to go to those games, they're in the cellar at 21-31. But again, they are a up and coming team. So with that being said, we'll see what the Mets do today with the White Sox. Go Mets. Tune in tomorrow, 8:05 Eastern, live in the morning. John's going to be on with Marlon. I just don't know if they're interviewing someone. I didn't interview someone on Friday. So check out the Finest Unfiltered, 8:05 live in the morning Eastern. And also Executive Perspective will be on with Ron Layson and Rob Lukash. They'll be on 5:05 Eastern, 17:05 tomorrow. Hey, I wish they would have been in the chat. I'm sure they would have had a lot to say how this Son of Sam was handled, even though it's back in the day. But maybe later on I could get someone who was an executive at that time and would know the inner workings of what was going on, because it looks like the Bronx District Attorney's Office, something was going on there with how they handle this. Let's see, look at this. The Donald J. Trump Kings County Republican Club. Big news. Wednesday at 8:10 a.m., Jimmy Wagner, president of the Donald J. Trump Kings County Republican Club, is going on the Finest Unfiltered podcast, and he's dropping the unfiltered truth. So tomorrow, Jimmy Wagner will be on at 8:05 live on the Finest Unfiltered. That's breaking too, because I don't have a graphic or anything for it. So there you go. Tomorrow morning, check out Finest Unfiltered for Jimmy Wagner. Will be on with John. And they'll be discussing, there's plenty to discuss involving politics and New York City. So tune in for that. And also 17:05, 5:05 Eastern tomorrow, Executive Perspective. That's all for me, folks. I'll be back on Thursday at 1:05 Eastern or 13:05 Eastern on Thursday. And we'll be bringing you more news on what's going on. I hope you enjoyed this. This was a true crime episode, and I'll leave it there. What do you think? I don't know about the Son of Sam. What are your thoughts? I think Manny's been doing great work. I would highlight anyone who does work like that. I know he's going to have his detractors, but I think there's a lot of truth to what he brought as far as evidence-wise in the Wendy Savino case. Go check it out. Go on his YouTube. You can watch it. And if the haters are still on it, you can determine yourself what you think. So, yeah. I think it was important, and we'll see if he uncovers any new evidence in the future with the Bronx sniper case. But so until then, thank you all for watching. Thanks for the comments to all the supporters and the haters. We'll be back on Thursday, and I'm signing off from South Florida, which is a sunny place. Appreciate you people.
So this is a biblical moment. When Jesus was on the cross, he said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. All these Negroes who are asking me to step down, God, forgive them. Are you stupid?